If I had a cent for every time somebody asks me what they should choose between Solid, Svelte and Qwik, I would probably have around 4 cents. In all seriousness, now that these frameworks are getting more mainstream, it's only natural for you to wonder what's the best option. After all, most of us can't afford to spend days reading documentation websites and playing around with frameworks just for the fun of it. On top of that, nobody is crazy enough to bet their job or their future project on a new framework which might or might not succeed in the long term. As developers, we are used to the endless debates of which is the best programming language or the best web framework. After all, the internet is filled with React versus Angular articles and, more often than not, devs end up in echo chambers where their preferred tools are the only viable option for any type of problem. However, we probably have around 2 more good years until coding will become just another automated task, so the answer to the question, should I learn Svelte, Solid or Qwik, is that you should learn all of them. Don't get discouraged though, this can be easily achieved these days by following a couple of simple steps. Let me explain. Modern JS frameworks have way more things in common than you would expect. Once you understand the basic concepts, everything else will fall into place. So we'll spend the next couple of minutes breaking down the core concepts behind all these frameworks. We'll also assess and grade how well they are doing in 8 core aspects, so stick around until the end of the video to find out which one is better, Svelte, Solid or Qwik. So, all modern apps are built using components. At a basic level, components are isolated elements which associate an HTML template to some JavaScript behavior. They manage their own internal state and can communicate with the outside world via properties and events. Solid and Qwik components are similar in nature since they are following closely the React model, which relies on functions, hooks and JSX for templating purposes. Svelte follows the single-file component approach made popular by frameworks like Vue and its own HTML-based templating system. While the approaches might differ visually, the fundamental ideas are still the same, and picking the best approach is mostly a matter of preference. For grading purposes, we'll use a simple process, where a score of 0 represents a subpar performance, a score of 1 is good enough, and a score of 2 signifies great performance. When it comes to building components, I believe that both Solid and Svelte are doing an excellent job. Solid fully relies on the well-known React approach, while Svelte manages to keep things simple and clean. Qwik's approach is good enough for me, but I feel like their heavy use of QRLs and $signs all over the code is not the best dev experience. QRLs are a very powerful mechanism and we'll look at them in more detail, but sadly they come at a price. Okay, next let's look at Reactivity, the magic under the hood, the thing that makes our web app stick. In short, this is a process that ensures changes in your component state are reflected in the DOM and vice versa. Again, this is a core concept, and all frameworks under the sun follow the same principle. Just remember this: whenever internal state or properties are changed by external events, like user actions or server updates, the DOM should be updated in an efficient manner. I don't think it should come as a surprise when I say that Svelte's reactivity is simply excellent. In all fairness, Svelte is a compiler, so it can leverage this detail to create powerful mechanisms such as reactivity through assignation or reactive statements. The bar is set quite high, so, in comparison, the signal architecture used by Solid and Qwik is just good enough. When building web apps, you'll usually encounter the most complexity when managing state. Again, most modern frameworks employ the same mechanism when working with state. Consider here ideas like the flux pattern or the unidirectional data flow. All frameworks are doing a great job on this topic, with concepts such as Svelte readable and writable stores, Solid immutable stores, or Qwik recursive stores. So, as you can see, these frameworks share a lot of common ideas, but there is even more to it. We've discussed reactivity and state, let's now take a quick look at the last piece of the puzzle, updating the DOM. Svelte and Solid are keeping things really simple here. When changes are detected, the DOM is accurately and efficiently updated. Qwik, on the other hand, relies on a virtual DOM, an in-memory representation of the real DOM, used to minimize the number of updates to the real DOM. While this technique was rather popular for a while, recent improvements in both browser performance and algorithms are rendering the virtual DOM obsolete. While still a good enough solution, one has to take into account both the JS overhead and the memory consumption of using a virtual DOM instead of the real DOM directly. Another thing all these tools are sharing is meta frameworks. Svelte has Kit, Solid has Start, and Qwik has City. These frameworks are offering a wide range of features on top of the existing UI capabilities. Think here of routing, server rendering support, or full-stack development support. Svelte Kit and Qwik City are a blast to work with, but in all fairness, Solid is lagging here with the Meta framework still in beta. Moving forward to everyone's favorite topic, performance, I believe all these libraries are doing extremely well. In my opinion, we are past the point where measuring DOM updates is a relevant metric, and I don't think it ever was actually. In the modern web, over-the-wire transfers, memory consumption or time to interactive are much more important when quantifying performance. Again, everybody is doing great here, with slight variations that don't really move the needle. The Meta frameworks employ various strategies ranging from the islands architecture to partial hydration, and Qwik deserves a special mention here due to its innovative resumability architecture. Okay, when it comes to developer experience, things will get a little bit more subjective. When assessing it, I am always considering things such as ease of development, learning materials, the overall adoption, and the overall ecosystem. I believe Svelte is offering the cleanest and most streamlined experience, and Solid does a really good job improving the already more than popular reactive dev experience. Writing Qwik code is a bit more boilerplatey though, especially compared with the alternatives. Finally, whenever looking at a framework, it's always a good idea to evaluate its adoption and possible prospects in the job market. At the end of the day, this is what really matters and what turns a hobby library into a real project. We have to be objective here and consider all the alternatives in the front-end space. With all this in mind, I fear Solid and Qwik are not cutting it yet, and Svelte might be good enough due to its larger adoption rate. So these are the final results. Do you agree with them? If not, voice your outrage in the comments, and until next time, thank you for watching.